For the past 15 years, Inception has been widely discussed for its ambiguous ending and unique storytelling, some questioning if it really is deserving of all of its accolades. Well, let's take a look. It follows Dom Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, a thief with the rare and unique ability to enter people's dreams via a special machine, allowing him to steal their secrets and sell them to the highest bidder. Kinda like a gangster Freddy Krueger.
Can't fix that! No one can!
However, due to being framed for the death of his wife Mal, played by Marion Cotillard, he's not been allowed to see his children for several years until a shady CEO called Sato, played by Ken Watanabe, offers him the opportunity to return to his family in exchange for completing a seemingly impossible task, planting an idea into someone's mind rather than stealing it, otherwise known as Inception.
That's the name of the movie!
The someone in question is Sato's corporal rival Robert Fisher, played by Cillian Murphy, whose company he wants to dissolve, and Dom quickly puts together a team to pull off the job. His partner Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a forger called Eames, played by Tom Hardy, because Christopher Nolan really loves reusing his cast apparently. They even got Michael Caine as Dom's father-in-law. A chemist named Yusuf, played by Dilip Rao, and a college student called Ariadne, played by Elliot Page. The team then enter Fisher's mind to plant the idea in his head, but as they dive further and further into multiple layers of dreaming, Dom's past threatens to blow the plan, and it's up to our wacky team to successfully perform Inception,
That's the name of
or risk being stuck in limbo for all eternity. Or until Ariadne kills themselves. Yeah, so in the dream world, if you die, then you wake up, but at several points they acknowledge that now, towards the end of the film, they're all sedated, so it won't work anymore. You see, if they die during the sedated state, they end up in limbo, a horrific abyss that is purely inescapable. The worst torment a human could ever imagine. Until Elliot Page simply jumps off a building and wakes up, and Dom jolts back awake too, so I guess it's not that difficult to get out of. Barely an inconvenience.
Well, that's not true.
The idea for this movie actually dates all the way back to Nolan's time at university, where he became fascinated by the idea of lucid dreaming. He would often stay awake until the early hours of the morning, fall asleep, wake up to get free breakfast, and then go back to sleep again. This process allowed him to enter a sleep state, wherein he had a degree of control over his dreams, which gave him the idea to write a story about people who steal dreams for a living. He wrote an 80-page treatment based on this idea, but he initially envisioned it as a horror film, before Wes Craven clearly before he changed it to be more of a heist story. However, it wasn't until he finished work on Insomnia in 2001 that Nolan pitched the movie to Warner Brothers, who loved it and encouraged him to write a full script. He then spent 8 years putting it together, citing the likes of Dark City, The Matrix, The 13th Floor, and even his own film Memento as inspirations. Yeah, you can tell.
Right, but it's not your idea because you know I gave it to you.
However, he soon realised that his idea was far too ambitious for a small-scale movie and opted to gain more experience in big-budget filmmaking before embarking on this massive project. He would go on to direct Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, both of which were huge successes, which gave Warner Brothers the confidence they needed to give Nolan his desired budget to realise his vision. When it came to casting, Leonardo DiCaprio was Nolan's only choice for the lead role, as he wanted to work with the actor for a long time, and he redrafted the script to ensure that Dom's emotional journey was the driving force of the whole movie. DiCaprio agreed after being intrigued by the film's concept of a dream heist, and he and the director spent months going over the screenplay to clarify everything they wanted to achieve together. Meanwhile, the audience spent years going over the film trying to clarify everything that they hoped to understand.
How?
For the part of Sato, Ken Watanabe was also Nolan's first choice, as he felt bad about sidelining the actor during the filming of Batman Begins and wanted to give him a much more substantial part. Tom Hardy was also the first choice for Eames after Nolan saw his performance in Rock'n'Roller. James Franco met with Nolan to play Arthur, but backed out due to scheduling conflicts. Kate Winslet was Nolan's first pick for Mal, but she turned it down, claiming that she couldn't see herself as the character. Plus, having her in a scene with Leo on the beach near the ocean probably would have just brought back loads of terrible memories.
Doesn't matter.
And Evan Rachel Wood, Emily Blunt, Rachel McAdams, Carey Mulligan, Emma Roberts, and even Taylor Swift were considered for Ariadne, before the selection of Elliot Page, who was only 23 years old when he was cast. Even though he looks about 5, which does make me very uncomfortable because there's a scene where the NPCs in Dreamland are getting suspicious, so Joseph Gordon-Levitt asks Elliot to kiss him, but Levitt looks 38 and Elliot looks 12, so it just looks really creepy.
That's not true at all, is it?
Filming began in June 2009 in Tokyo before moving to the UK, France and Morocco. And like Nolan's other films, the vast majority of scenes were shot with practical effects rather than CGI, such as the car chase, the rotating corridor, the folding mirror, the train crashing onto the convoy, and the van driving off the bridge and into the river.
Very impressive.
Inception was finally released on July the 16th, 2010, and against all odds, it was an insane success. The film grossed an incredible $837 million worldwide, making it the 4th highest grossing film that year, which is insane when when you consider the fact that it's not a sequel, remake or reboot, and it received glowing reviews praising its ambition, effects, performances and direction, many citing it as one of the year's best pictures. In fact, with the exception of The Social Network, more critics picked Inception as the best film of 2010 than any other movie that year. Obviously, none of them saw Buried.
Not sure that's necessary.
It went on to be nominated for 8 Academy Awards, winning 4 for Best Cinematography, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects. It won the Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation, and it's often cited as one of Nolan's best works, one of the best movies of that decade, and is one of the most parodied and referenced films of the last 20 years. The first thing that needs mentioning is Hans Zimmer's musical score. It kind of goes without saying because I'm pretty sure the man could just sneeze on an orchestra and still compose a masterpiece, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The music is amazing in this film. Even in scenes when there's not a lot going on, it does a phenomenal job of building up the tension and suspense. Obviously, this isn't the first trippy what the f is going on film when you look at movies like Pulp Fiction or Memento, which play around with time in their storytelling. I guess some of the Elm Street movies do dip their toes into the is it a dream or not, but this goes all out and it adds so much suspense when you're constantly wondering what is or isn't real. The visuals are incredible. An entire city starts flipping upside down! Elliot Page begins changing things in the dream world and it looks completely legit. The production is nuts. And I know it's not the issue, but it always fascinates me when movies have mirror shots and you can't see the camera. It's just amazing. The cinematography is incredible. I also love the concept of the dream world. It's so intense as the characters panic and need to be woken up, so everything they do is constantly a race against time. It's such a clever way to add levels to the stakes in the film. Almost every action scene means so much because you don't know if it's real or isn't, so you still hope they make it out okay just in case. It constantly keeps you guessing. But let's talk about the totems. In this film, everyone has what's called a totem. It's a personal item that they can't tell anybody about so nobody can invade their own subconscious, or it's an alert so they know if they're in someone else's dream. For example, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character has a dice and only he knows the exact weight of it. Now this one works and makes sense, so if it weighs even slightly differently, he's aware that he's in a dream. But Dom's doesn't make any sense. He has the spinning top and, well, I mean, if it topples over, it's reality. If it endlessly spins, it's a dream. Now there's a couple of problems with this. The first one is, surely if this gets discovered by a stranger, it's obvious how it works. This isn't like the weight of a dice, this is literally it spins your dreaming. I mean, it's self-explanatory, isn't it? If someone kidnaps Dom, finds it, spins it, it doesn't fall, oh I guess we're in a dream. Secondly, he does next to nothing to follow the damn rules that he sets out. It's established that they can't let anyone know about their own personal totem, as that would defeat the entire purpose, but at several points he spins it in front of everyone so they know the damn rules set out. I guess you could argue that you could dream someone else's totem falling, so until you know that yours works there's still a possibility it could be a dream, but it still raises a lot more questions than answers.
I was working on my totem actually.
Here, take a look. So you're learning, huh?
But now, let me tell you all about mine.
This one was hers. She'd spin it in the dream and would never topple. Just spin and spin.
Leo is one of my favourite actors and he is fantastic in this. Throughout the movie, he races through his memories to the last time he ever saw his kids, and he is amazing. I think the best scene of the film is when we see him try to convince his wife not to jump from a window. The acting on both sides is incredible, although I'm not sure how the hell they can frame him for her death, considering they're in 2 opposite hotel rooms and there'd be CCTV footage. Oh, shh!
It should be possible.
And after Leo gives us plenty of meme material for the years that followed, he's trying to fulfill the main objective, but his kids keep nearly invading, but he manages to stay focused. It's so good. And then we get to them invading Cillian Murphy's dream within a dream, within a dream, within a dream, and it gets really confusing. I mean, it's very convenient and they end up getting stuck behind a taxi so they can hijack it and kidnap him. Now you could say that, okay, well, they're in his dream so they can make anything happen, but if that's the case, why not just start in the taxi? Why all of this bumping into a taxi, scaring off the driver, stealing the car, tricking Murphy inside, have Tom Hardy join them? I think you're overly complicating this, guys. It doesn't need to be this confusing. And you can tell, considering the fact that these characters ask each other questions 399 times throughout the movie, and 114 come from Dom alone. Either way, this seems amazing. Once Leo breaks the news to Cillian that Sunshine was pretty Murphy's acting is incredible. The casting is definitely the best part of the film. He manages to trick the poor guy into revealing the safe combination, which is pretty clever. And Murphy's performance is incredible as Fisher gets to say one final goodbye to his father and realises that he should create something for himself rather than live in his father's shadow.
I know you were disappointed. I couldn't be you.
No, I was disappointed. We just tried.
That said, my biggest criticism of the movie is that I wish the character writing was a bit stronger. Dom is really the only character who has a strong arc throughout the movie. Fisher does towards the end, and I guess Ariadne does too, as she stays by Dom's side and helps him on his journey. But other than that, the characters are all quite simplistic. Not bad, but simplistic. But the performances more than make up for it. Tom Hardy is always a blast, and there is no exception. He is terrific. He has some of the funniest lines in the whole film.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
That said, Nolan also knows when to balance tension with humour. When the team realises that dying in this dream means being stuck in limbo forever, Hardy's performance is amazing, and he really sells the severity of the situation, whilst still delivering a funny line.
Now we're trapped in Fisher's mind battling his own private army, and if we get killed, we'll be lost in limbo till our brains turn to scrambled egg.
The rotating corridor scene looks amazing. The choreography is great, and it's so much better than if they had just, span the camera around. They end up having an anti-gravity fight, and oh my god, it looks so cool. I just want to kiss Christopher Nolan's shoes. There is a whole dream sequence up a mountain, and I did make a note that it resembles a damn Nintendo 64 level of GoldenEye, which is fitting because it was genuinely inspired by Nolan's favourite Bond movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I mean, the van falling should give a jolting sensation to wake everybody up, as explained in their own movie.
What's a kick?
This, Ariadne, would be a kick.
It's that feeling of falling you get that jolts you awake. It snaps you out of the dream.
But it doesn't, it just doesn't, don't worry about it. And then we get the ending that has caused speculation for years over whether or not it's real. Dom returns home with Alfred Pennyworth to be reunited with his kids, and he spins his totem, but he doesn't stop to see if it's real or not. He finally sees his kids' faces, but we then cut to black before we see if the totem falls or not. And we're going to go over both sides, but first let's go over why people think that this is all a dream. Now firstly, it does spin a lot longer than in previous attempts. Damn mathematicians online have realised that the first time he spins it, it lasts 21 seconds before falling. The second time, 18 seconds. Whereas this one spins for 49 seconds before cutting to black. Furthermore, the top isn't even Dom's totem, it was his wife's. Therefore, even if it did fall, it may not indicate if it is reality, and he could still be in a dream. Also, the screenplay itself does confirm that it is still spinning before cutting to black. However, scripts do often change during production, so I don't think that that one is too definitive. But now, this is why people believe that it's reality. Right at the end, just a fraction of a second before cutting to black, you can see that the top begins to wobble as if it's about to fall. Those with a keen eye for detail, like myself, or IMDb's trivia section, would also notice that his kids are wearing different clothing as earlier in the film and also look significantly older. Previously, Dom could only vaguely remember what his kids looked like because he hadn't seen them for so long. So the fact that he can see their faces and they've changed appearance from how they looked in his head seems like pretty clear proof that it's real. Furthermore, earlier in the film, Dom says,
You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here?
But Dom does remember how he got there. He gets on the plane, completes his mission, gets off the plane and goes to the house. It's all clearly shown. But I think the most definitive part of all of this is that throughout the film, whenever Dom is dreaming, he is wearing his wedding ring. Any scene in the real world, he doesn't have it on. And you guessed it, in this final scene, he does not have his wedding ring on. Which is enough to convince me that this scene is in fact reality. I also think it defeats the whole point of the movie if this is all a dream. What, he goes through this entire journey, risks it all to get back to his family only to remain in dreamland? It just seems a bit pointlessly depressing. We also never see their faces until the end, so it's a bit of a miserable ending if it isn't true. Who cares? What a film! I'll be honest, the first time I saw this movie, I didn't really get it. I didn't hate it or anything, but I never really saw what all of the fuss was about. But on rewatch, I found myself really engaging with the movie and I enjoyed it a whole lot. Yeah, you could argue that it has similarities to movies like The Matrix or Dark City, but it definitely does enough to separate itself and form its own identity. I do think the supporting cast could have been more fleshed out and the logistics of the dream world can get a bit confusing, but it does keep you engaged throughout. All of the performances are great, the action is spectacular, and I think its storytelling is fantastic. Regardless of its few flaws, I think Inception is a terrific piece of filmmaking and certainly worthy of all of its accolades.